attention to detail. They take their positions very seriously. And what I have found is that female bosses, myself included, um, men sometimes feel intimidated and women sometimes feel jealous. And as a result, there is the pressure to perform at the highest standard to ensure that we are performing and getting the results that our bosses or stakeholders are demanding of us. So I think it's a bad rap.
Okay, all right. That was very interesting. Esinam, what do you think?
I think that she's right to a large extent. There are just people who cannot stand authority by a woman or from a woman. And so a little excesses that you may have as an individual that may even come from just a personality flaw could be considered as a character of your, or becomes the stereotype, that okay, women in authority are like this, or women in positions of power are like this and like that. um I think that we hold men to a different standard than women, especially in this part of our world. And so we cannot stand to see women doing things that ordinarily men would do and get away with. You'd have a lot of women being judged by totally different standards. A man can come into office and stamp as an authority and say, okay, everybody go and do your jobs and clean up, and it won't be seen as anything. Let a woman come and say those same words, go do your job, go clean up, it will be considered bitchy behavior. So I think it's a stereotype mostly, but I think it's also unfair judgment of women, and expecting us to be held to a different standard compared to men.
Oh, okay. All right. Interesting. Naneke, I'm interested in your views as well. What do you think?
Yes. In fact, that we are even sitting here having this conversation tells you that women really are, put on a different standard from men, just as
Exactly.
I don't think there'll ever be a conversation about male bosses
Being
being
difficult.
difficult, whether
Yeah.
it's a myth or a reality. And I don't know. Probably, unfortunately, like when we're coming, we're talking about. I haven't had this experience on either side of the table as an employee or as a boss. I haven't had a bad experience. So, to me, if I have to speak from my experience, it's a myth. It's
Okay.
completely a myth.
Okay. So for you, completely.
I haven't experienced it. I have heard it, but I haven't experienced it. So it's a myth.
I see. Karen. So Nanekia, how many people do you have under you? Just an idea.
Okay, we employ maybe close to 50 people.
Okay.
Some in the office, some on site, different locations and whatnot. And we have to coordinate a lot with different people at different stages.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nanekia runs an architectural firm,
Yes.
and she's the boss, and
Hi,
has.
Karen. Okay, she didn't hear me.
Hi, Karen. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, loud and clear.
Okay,
All right.
so Nanekia has about 50 employees, and she's the boss. But she says that difficult female bosses is a myth. How is that possible?
Well, one thing she also said that I respect, she said she has not experienced it. And I am very happy for her. But in my career, which spans almost 40 years, I have experienced that in every aspect of my career. And it's not just in Ghana. But to answer your question, I have a staff strength of about 220 employees. Direct reports to me is about 15 people. And I can tell you unequivocally, the hardest working, more detailed oriented, willing to take responsibility are the female direct
Exactly.
reports. The men generally always have an excuse, like to play around, and always trying to usurp authority.
Yeah.
That has been my experience here. And I've also experienced it in the investment industry, the banking industry, the reinsurance industries that I've worked in. But as a resilient female
Yeah.
who has worked at being a leader, I can say that I've developed strategies to deal with what some perceive as a myth, but what many of us experience on a day-to-day basis in our working lives.
Well, we'd love to hear about your strategy a little later on when we get into how to cope with some of these female bosses. But Esinam, so is it that the female bosses, when there's a problem, do you feel that it's more that the female bosses are the problem, or it is more the perception from the employees that is the problem? Because otherwise, then we're saying that there's actually no issue with female bosses. It's just those who work for them.
I think that in an attempt to please everyone, or in an attempt to be perceived a certain way, the female boss could either go two sides of the bargain, either be too empathetic and be too laissez-faire that people can have their way easily, or have to be hard because you cannot afford for people to just have their way easily. And for some scenarios or some situations, there may be the need for the woman to be extra hard or extra insistent on what needs to be done, because for a lot of people, if they had their own way, they would sleep. So sometimes it demands that the female boss has to be that hard person who insists that what needs to be done gets done. I definitely think more empathy can be blended in it, in how to approach issues. But I think that there is a perception problem from the two sides, right? The person who is perceiving the woman as the problem could have more awareness to just look at the situation and address the situation as it is, without having to transfer
Make it about
feelings.
gender, yeah.
Exactly, or make it about even gender, because I don't think the gender matters in this issue. People are difficult. Human beings are naturally difficult. You'd find a man who is probably 2 times as hard or 2 times as difficult as the woman.
But we sort of expect that. So it's like, it's okay.
Exactly. So it's a little different. It's like we don't
So is
deserve
it the female
it.
bosses then are difficult?
Well, that was the
Sometimes.
question that we were
Yeah.
asking. So is it that the female bosses are difficult?
difficult,
Or is
or
it the
No, there are
perception
those.
of...
I don't think there's a one answer for it.
Yeah.
There
Okay,
are those
some.
who are difficult.
Okay.
I think it's a personality
Because I know
issue.
someone
You
who
think
has,
it's a
I know
personality
someone
issue?
who has met some female bosses who probably for some reason don't want you to commit the same mistakes they did, but they can't communicate that in a very direct way. So instead of maybe advising you on your style or how you approach work, how you dress and everything, instead of being more of an advisory mentor figure, it's more of a dictator figure. Don't wear this
Judgmental,
again.
don't-
do
yeah.
this again, without any explanation, without any conversations on
Of
what
these
the
are the battles I had to
Exactly.
face.
This
Therefore,
is-
if you do it this way,
you
it
know,
will be
and
better.
so there's the assumption also that there are people who assume that they are right all the time, and so when I speak to you, you must listen. So definitely there are bad nuts in there. There are people who are actually on that side. Otherwise, that phrase won't exist.
Right, okay. So when we were listening to the Vox Pop, Danikia, a lot of the men talked about the mood swings, and today the boss is pregnant. And I'm asking you this question because you've been pregnant a lot
A lot. How
in
many?
your career.
4 times, for heaven's sake.
Four is not only.
Right? I mean, I'm just saying that
Yes,
I've watched
I
you
have,
manage, having the kids and all of that, and then
lots of
obviously
female stuff also with kids.
and then but then also then there's the hormones that come with it, and our vox poppers were like, well, that's a problem, because when your boss is pregnant, then she's this and she's that and she's that. So I mean, what do you think about that generally? And then Karen, I'll come to you about your experience with the childbearing years and how that impacts on our ability to be good bosses. So let me start with you.
female bosses getting pregnant and whatnot. Female staff get pregnant. We have the same. The female situation is the same. Of course, workspaces are usually not accommodating to that. In my case, however, what I have found is the men actually benefit from our female leaning organization.
Okay.
Once upon a time, when the women were bringing their children, there were men also whose wives couldn't take their children to work. So after school, they would bring their children to the office, and they appreciated this a lot.
Okay.
You know, so I am finding this particular question very specific, and that's why I kept going back to, let's say, personality issue, because is it the female boss that's the problem, or is it what people want to perceive of the female boss that's the problem? I don't think females do anything different from the males.
Okay.
If anything, we are having to work twice as hard to be taken as seriously
Half
as the
as
men.
seriously.
Anyway, half as seriously anyway. So I think in general, maybe women should be given grace, because at the end of the day, female bosses are dealing with more than probably just
Male
work.
bosses, yeah.
You know, we have to multitask. Most men don't have to. When they come to work, is work, 100%. Women have to compartmentalize and all kinds of things.
And
to
sometimes
be able
come to work with a baby in your stomach.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's maybe for people to give grace. At the end of the day, is the work getting done? Is this boss getting the work done? And I think that's what matters at the end of the
But
day.
how about the emotions and the hormones? Because I mean, when we're pregnant,
Animwaa,
we're not-
every human being has
Has
mood
emotions
swings.
and hormones.
yeah, but not as many as a pregnant
I
woman.
think it's rather maybe this idea that, oh, a female boss will be tough or will be difficult or will be so and so. So people already approach with that. And then there are women who get into the position and know that this is what I'm going to deal with, and also toughen up maybe, and then we end up with this narrative, and such conversations even have to happen. But at the end of the day, if we are honest with ourselves, really, like you're saying, emotions, everyone has them. We have seen men with emotions.
Except that, you know, the interesting thing about emotions, there are some things we don't classify as emotions.
Exactly.
So an angry male boss is not emotional.
No.
But an angry female boss
It's
is
emotional.
emotional. But it's the emotion of
this thing
anger.
is a society problem.
It's a-
Honestly,
yeah.
it's society that's doing this to us. Because
Oh, wow.
all we're doing is we are doing our work.
Karen, your thoughts?
Well, first, let me say that I actually have no children,
Okay.
but I have been fortunate enough to work with many women who have been pregnant on the job, especially right after COVID. I think in our company we had at least 2 or 3 of my managers were pregnant. And I have to honestly say that they were just as efficient and professional and extremely productive as from even before they were pregnant. But like anything else, people are different. I've worked in other organizations when women, not necessarily managers, but women at the age of, at a pregnancy of 3 weeks, and they're already starting to show hormonal changes. And I've also worked with women in the past that even to the day they deliver, they've been very even keeled. So it just depends, I think, on the individual and the type of pregnancy they're having. But as a female boss, I'm always looking to be extremely sensitive and give latitude where necessary for people who might be with child, especially after giving birth. Because in many cases, the carrying of the child is not always challenging from a workplace perspective, but it's after they delivered, whether it be child care when they return to work, or if the child is sick, etc. And to be very honest, people who were productive, efficient, and produced prior to having children, I have seen that even after they've had children, somehow they manage to do it. and people who were not that way before they had the children, the same traits continue. And one of the things I actually would like to touch on is the fact that it's not always telling or asking somebody to do, but it might be producing, let's say, a report and there's a deadline, and getting it in on time and making it be accurate. My experience has been, even when women are pregnant or have given birth, those reports still come out on a timely basis.
Exactly.
And if they can't come out on a timely basis, they let you know ahead of time so you can go to a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
On the male side, well, if the report comes and it's full of mistakes, be it mathematical or grammatical or layout, they get defensive.
Yeah.
And they think, you're just being difficult. The content is there. Not understanding that that is a representation not only of my office as a CEO, but also of the company if it's a document that is going outside. And that is where a lot of times the myth, if I can use that word, is used, where, oh, she's a difficult boss. And it's usually, I'd say 99.75%, it's usually because the boss is expecting that the output must be of a very excellent level. And that is where sometimes the clash happens, because they are refusing to accept the fact that they have submitted substandard work and a woman has dared to say she's not accepting it. So just to circle back around to women who give birth in the workplace, I actually have rarely, if ever, encountered anyone who has used their pregnancy as a way to submit substandard work or to get out of doing something that they can do. That's been my experience in the 40 plus years of working.
So I feel like what I'm taking away is that by the time a woman becomes a leader or a boss, she's been through so much and maybe had to fight through so much. So once she's there, the demand that she's placing on those that are under her is of quality.
Exactly, because again, she cannot afford to be wrong
or fail
or fail where she is.
Yes.
So the thing is, I have to do whatever it takes to succeed. And because of that pressure that I put on myself to do what it takes to succeed, sometimes it may mean barking at someone,
which a man will do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I was gonna get to is, it may mean, shouting at someone or not being very kind in a particular moment, or maybe putting pressure on somebody. But these are all things that
But when
men do it.
yeah, exactly.
So men, we are okay taking it from men. We're just not okay taking it from women. And especially more men are not okay. Ghanaian men are not okay taking it from Ghanaian women.
And sometimes even Ghanaian women taking it from Ghanaian women, because there's still that inherent "who do you think you are"
kind of
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw Karen shaking her head. Like, yes.
There's the "who do you think you are" thing.
Karen, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I was just going to say that same point. I find many times there is that deep resentment sometimes from women who might have languished in a middle level position for quite some time, and they don't understand why that female boss was hired over them. So the resentment flows through everything. So the slightest feedback or suggestion or recommendation, it is taken with hostility, very thinly veiled hostility, but hostility nonetheless. And this is a conversation I have with many other female leaders of who are friends of mine. So I know, and we sometimes ignore it, but we're very aware that it is there. So I think it's the female to female issues sometimes that becomes much more, how can I say, distracting and negative in a workplace. And it takes very strong leadership and management skills
Yes.
to work alongside somebody like that and not lose your cool.
Yeah. I mean, to be firm when you need to be firm, to be kind when you need to be kind, to extend grace when you need to extend grace. You know, I like I said, it's really a personality thing and a people management thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Even for the men leaders, they have to have these qualities as well, to know when to be firm, to know when to be kind, to know when it's a personality thing.
But you know, one of
I
the
also think
things
that if you look at the society that we find ourselves in, we're expecting women to be warm, nurturers, and mothers and soft. So if the person is anything other than that, what we're expecting, then they are difficult. If they insist, let's say for example, like the example she mentioned, you'd have males giving excuses and trying to usurp power and all that, and let's say she being in the position of power, she stamps her foot and she's like, no, I'm not taking any excuses. Show up on time and deliver what you need to deliver and put out your best work. She is going to be seen as a difficult boss. That is to somebody who is incompetent. Now, if you are not able, if you are always having to complain about your bosses, then maybe you should check yourself.
Indeed.
All right. Well, Karen is
So
giving you a
true.
round of applause.
so
So we're gonna go on a quick break at 7:40. That's in 5 minutes, and then when we come back, we have loads of messages. So many, wow, so many times, and let me just say that a lot of the men are really coming for us.
Oh, geez.
No.
Yes. Really, really coming for us. Actually, let me do a preview for you guys. So this one, Manchester says, female friend safe. We know they see top. Na boss.
You don't need to be friends to get the job done.
Well, Oseko Abna says, I relate better with females or my bosses. This one says, I've worked with both and I prefer a male. Women and their wahala. Because of how our emotions swing, they sometimes channel it to the work when it actually has nothing to do with work. Men, on the other hand, don't deal with emotions and work is work. Do you guys feel that
men don't deal with emotions?
Well, they bury the emotion and it rears up as
No.
somewhere else.
They are not multitasking. They are one plug.
Yeah,
Honestly,
so not all
they are not
not all
having to
the
deal with the same things that the same multiplicity of things that a woman is having to deal with. I mean,
so it's easy to come to work and shut off.
yeah,
It's
easier for a
very
man.
easy to come to work and not care about your baby with a runny nose in nursery, not worrying
No, the
about that
point-
child.
yeah.
You know,
Okay, but then
because
do you
you're
guys
constantly
get then that translates into the fact that you're worried about your baby
child.
with the runny nose may make you a little bit more cranky.
So that is where the person working with you must be empathetic enough to know that, okay, what's going on with her? Then she tells you, my baby is not well. I dropped her off this morning at school, but I wasn't so sure, and I'm worried about her. You, the woman, also having the awareness to actually name your feelings and name what you're worried about. And the person you're working with also knowing that, okay, this is something that could happen, and I need to give the person grace for it.
Yes.
I need to give the person
and get your work done.
because at the end of the day, if you if you're able to get me to cool down, if you're able to get me my mind off the worry by a conversation or something, it all comes down to workplace culture, really. Because you find an environment where when the women are going through whatever it is at home, they are able to share with their male colleagues, and not oversharing, but just hinting that, okay, like today I'm preoccupied with this, or this is what's on my mind today. And so you find the men supporting, and you'd find a place where the men actually don't care. They expect you to show up 100% all the time, but we're human beings, and people can have lapses, and people can have moments where they are weak, where their anger gets the better part of them. It's a normal human thing. Instead of making it a woman female boss thing, accept it as a human flaw and just give grace for it.
Grace.
Okay, but we all know that it is not going to be accepted as a human flaw. it is going to be always labeled as a woman thing. So Karen, how do we, are we in a way letting ourselves down when we come to work with all of the compartments of our brains working and open and worrying about our children and the food in the freezer and whether our in-laws are coming for dinner and whether, you know, you left the lights
else
on
has
and,
to worry
does
about
your
it?
husband have a side chick and is your child dating somebody? I mean, when you have to bring all those things to work, are we then, you know, asking for what we shouldn't ask for and bringing that into the workplace, even though yes, it may seem like the men have a disadvantage because they can leave all of that actually they leave all of that on the shoulders of their women, so they don't have to worry about it.
So who
But
else
I'm
will
saying,
worry?
my point is, are we not letting ourselves down when we come to work with those emotions? And I ask Karen, because both of you look like you're about to answer.
Well, actually, I don't think we're quote unquote letting ourselves down.
Thank you.
In fact, again, I can only speak from my experiences over the last 40 years. And even more recently in my tenure as a CEO at Rabito. I find people who are productive in the normal course of their work, when they have these challenges, and they will come and say, look, I need to work from home today because XYZ, or I need to take my child to this or that. I don't have any issues with people because those are natural life occurrences. It happens with men, it happens with women. But where women, if you will, women leaders might let themselves down, if under normal circumstances, they are constantly on a daily basis bringing their home baggage to the office and not able to produce for the employer or the manager or for what they are being paid to do, then there is a problem. But honestly, I don't think any manager who has someone who on a normal basis is able to be a productive member of staff has any issues when a person's private life comes into their professional life. Okay. I've had many instances. I've even had instances where phenomenal employees have had, say, domestic issues at home that bordered on abuse. And we could see the change in the person's demeanor at work. But you work with that person to be able to help them, okay? But if it was somebody who was a slacker, who was always, you know, let's say coming to work drunk every day or high, when they start to have issues outside the environment of the office and they go from bad to worse, then of course, any leader who has, even if she has empathy, she is going to want what's best for the company and take steps to rectify that situation so the company and its clients are not adversely affected. But under normal day-to-day, life happens. It happens. And regularly every week, I get calls from managers who they might have a home issue, and because they're so productive and focused when under normal circumstances, you don't have a problem when life intervenes. It's you know, like the young lady said earlier, we're all human. And men also have those issues too. And I'm happy to say some of my male direct reports, they have had to call me. I have to take my son for a shot. I have to do this or that. Nobody says they're being difficult or being emotional or, you know, things of that nature. So I think we, as women, we have to stop beating up on ourselves and try and be not only focused, but also empathic. It's something you learn as you develop and grow as a
Isn't it
leader.
interesting how if a guy calls work and says, oh, my son is sick, so I need to stay home with him today, we'll be like, oh, he's such a good dad. Like, he's so involved. But if a woman calls and you there every day, your child is sick, why do we do that?
No, I never do that. I never, because like, you know, the other panelists have said, as women, we have to look at situations from all different angles, and people are human, and a lot depends on the culture of your organization.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we'll get interactive. We'll get into our messages and our polls and all of that. So stay tuned in. This is Strong and Sassy here on Joy 99.7 FM. This is still Strong and Sassy here on Joy 99.7 FM. I can see somebody saying, how are you discussing female bosses without any male voice? Bro, we discuss everything on this show without a male voice. This is Strong and Sassy. That's just what we do. Yeah, anyways, okay, let me be serious. Okay. Did I hear that one of your panelists said the issue is a myth? I'm a man and my current boss is a male, but he is so difficult to work with. That's notwithstanding, I also know ladies who had difficulties working with their female bosses. So like we said, then it's a human thing, it's a person thing. Nana Kwesi says a lot of the bad rap is born out of the expectations of how a woman boss must carry themselves. The moment that expectation is not met, they earn a bad name through the conditioning that the man is supposed to lead. So if a woman occupies a higher position and does what has to be done to be executed, it's seen as she's being bossy.
She's the boss.
Yes. Wow. Assessing it holistically, devoid of any prejudice or conditioning, you will learn that it's not about women, but the kind of person that we're dealing with. Being moody, showing emotions can be exhibited by anyone. Maybe if one begins to experience their female bosses for who they are, then maybe in all, it will be realized as a myth. Okay. Okay, let me just go through a couple here. This one says, Kojo Kiel says a male boss every time. Women have ovulation issues, menstruating issues, free periods, wahala. This one, Yofi says, women move with emotions and that affects everything and everything they do. She'll bring her problems from home to work and might end up speaking to you anyhow because she's your boss. When she's your boss, she'll never say sorry when she offends you. Unfortunately, I have had bad experiences with most, if not all, of my bosses, and they happen to be males. The only female boss I ever worked under was tough, all right, but kind and understanding. Male bosses are the best. Female bosses, matankwa bossy ankasa. Melissa said, I've worked with both without having problems with any. It largely depends on your attitude towards work. Then Ida says female bosses are too bossy. Papa Carl says a male boss because so the question was, female or male boss, which one would you prefer? Papa Carl says a male boss because we live in a society where women have been sidelined in most areas. They have to do extra work to prove that they're fit for the job. So lots of times in proving that they're fit for it, they become excessively rude and unbearable to work with when they get into positions of power because men pass comments or make subtle statements or even act in ways that belittle their competence. Also, lots of women are agreeable people, and being agreeable and being a boss do not go together. So to save myself from all this, I prefer male bosses. Papa, your points are actually contradictory. But anyway, okay, I think I have a couple more here. A month with a female boss, and I was looking for a way out of a job I loved working at. Wow, I guess different strokes for different folks. Okay, so Philip from North Legon says the assertion that male employees always tend to give excuses to laze around and usurp authority is a perception based on an unrealistic expectation of a female boss. That's Philip from North Legon. Kay says, well, for a woman boss, I don't think I've had any problems with them. They do. I don't think I've had any problems with them. Okay, well, with the pregnancy, not an issue, but honestly, I've never had a nice female boss before. I'm yet to meet one. They're either moody, insecure, unnecessarily stern, unfair, etc. They never appreciate any efforts or even apologize for any of their misdemeanor. Well, I just put up with them and smile and I get my work done. I can kind of understand why you would think your boss is like the battle she's had to fight to get there. I mean, the thing is like, if a man says sorry, it's like, okay, yeah, sorry. When a woman says sorry, it's suddenly you are incompetent. So you've done something, therefore you had to apologize. I mean, and really, I feel like these are stereotypes that we have to deal with. Someone is asking, is that Esinam's voice I'm hearing? Yes. Stubborn Academy president is happy. All right. Naya says, could it be the case of men being able to separate their home issues from the professional setting rather than they being able to just shrug off their emotions? Zenanoba says, any boss is okay to work under. All I need is my salary. I come do my work, take my salary, and go
Thank
home.
you.
The kind of boss is individualistic. If you will have a problem with a boss, it can be male or female. Any of them can stress you. Nana Kwame says, male boss all day, twice on weekends, and 3 times on a public holiday. The last time I worked under a female boss, babysitting found its way into my job description. Wow.
And that's where your boundaries, you could just say that, no, I
Define
don't
your
think I
boundaries.
want to do this. And then if the person is being difficult, then the person is the difficult person. But you don't use the behavior of 5, 10 women to generalize and count the entire womanhood as a woman in a position of authority is a difficult person.
Is a difficult person. Okay. Well, Raphael says, I thought the topic is about female bosses. It's sounding like a comparison between male and female bosses. I did say when I was reading the messages that the question that the comments are in response to is whether people will rather have a female or a male boss. And if I wasn't clear about that, then I apologize. But that's what the comments are in response to. So he says it sounds like we're making excuses for the female bosses and blaming the males for everything that happened to the female. I love this so much, Raphael, because men do this. Every time we're trying to explain something, you say we're making excuses. So at which point are we actually allowed to explain or have a point?
wait.
It's like people
We have
ask
to
you a
wait
question
for when it's okay for them so that we can come and explain
or people ask
ourselves.
you a question and then when you answer, then they have a problem. But you ask the question, did you think I wouldn't have an answer? But anyway, Raphael, thank you so much for that. Male bosses would sleep with any lady who works under him. Wow. And will punish you should you reject his offer. Female boss would understand your
That's
emotions.
also very generous.
And yeah, that's also
Yeah,
very
stereotypical, and there are good male bosses out there.
I'm sure, yeah, there. And of course, there are also lesbian female bosses out there. So you
Oh,
just
wow.
never know which angle is gonna hit
Oh,
you
wow.
from. Just saying. I mean, Anika has opened her eyes like.
But I
do-
think somebody
have
hit
any
on a
more,
point
Queen?
that's very valid. It all depends on the individuals, whether it be male or female. And so what we're generalizing because we don't have specific examples. However, one should, I'm sure there are fantastic male bosses out there, and as equally as there are fantastic female bosses. And as I think employees dealing with the respective bosses, I always recommend that they look inward first before they say, oh, it's the boss. It's the boss. Because unless the boss is mentally deficient, there are usually reasons why their behaviors towards you are the way that it is.
Yeah.
I'll give an example. I actually have a manager that people would complain about. And when I investigated why they were complaining about her, it was because she was constantly having them do the right thing 100% of the time. And they felt that, that shouldn't be the case. We should be allowed to, sometimes get it right and other times not. And I had to say to the employee, but don't you see that not only is that manager trying to help you develop to be a better person, but also we're doing what is in the best interest of our patients, of our investors, and our other employees, because we're in the health industry. So you can't skirt issues. But from the employee's perspective, and I'm sure if they were to write in, they would say, oh, female bosses, they're difficult and they stick together. But it's not that. It's take a closer look and look at the issues that cause the friction. And it's rarely, if ever, personal. It's about the work. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, male or female.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Let me take just one last message. I remember somewhere in 2017, my little sister, who was then in SHS, and I went to one of the banks around La Paz for her to pay her school fee. Since I wanted her to become more familiar with the banking process, I left her to do everything. When it got to her turn, I realized there was this back and forth between her and the teller, who was male, for more than a minute. I approached and asked what the issue was when the teller revealed that there's a unique code for every student, which my sister was supposed to provide in order to make payment of her fees successful. My sister had forgotten her code. Luckily for us, I saw the code on her terminal report the previous day, and I could easily recollect it. I provided it to the teller, and he was able to complete the process. On our way home, my sister's first comment was, "Thank God the teller was a man." Curiously, I asked why. She said the man was very patient with her, and that a female teller would have asked her to go home and look for the code right away.
Assumption.
That was when I came to the conclusion that even females generally feel comfortable and more relaxed in dealing with males compared to females.
It's an assumption.
It is presumption. It is an assumption because we don't know we don't really know how a female, how the female teller would have reacted. Anyway, so we did a poll, like I was telling you guys. The question was, will you prefer working under a male boss or a female boss? And I have the results. So 79.7% of those who responded to the poll said they would prefer a male boss. And
demographic of that.
20 wow. I will refer you to Crispy K, the demographics on the show. But we did it on Twitter, so your guess is as good as mine. Or X, as it's
I
called
think
now.
there's a layer that we are not exploring, which is the person perceiving the difficultness.
Yes.
You know, we understand situation based on our individual
As we are,
experiences.
not as they are, yes.
So sometimes it's possible that we are perceiving something that may not actually
That
be
doesn't
there.
exist.
And because the mind hates uncertainty, it tries to fill in the blanks with the most possible outcome per your experiences. So if most of the women you've met are people who would, correct you when you go wrong, and you never liked it, you never liked being corrected, you've always been the person who assumes they're right, or you think that because you're a man you should enjoy certain things, and you've had women checking you. If you go into an environment where you're working with a female boss who even stamps a bit of authority, then you're feeling like, I'm back to
Yeah.
my previous experiences. I'm back to the mother who never gave me attention. I'm back to, and those are some of the things that we are missing, that we are not really, really exploring, because it could be from the people themselves judging the situation, and not necessarily from the fact that the woman is a horrible person.
Stubborn Academy.
Most
Presido.
most. I have two people under me. You never ask. Me there, you don't use me for anything. Okay.
I just want to say thank you guys so much. Karen, I can give you about 45 seconds just for your closing thoughts, but we've run out of time.
Oh, okay. Well, I would like to first of all say this has been a wonderful opportunity, and it's a discussion that we need to have more of and go take a deeper dive, because there are so many subliminal issues that lead to this perception. But one thing I want to say just very quickly as a visual orator, mothers and fathers, your daughters and your sons need to see women in positions of power, because I think that will be a huge step to ensure that this myth of women leaders being difficult, the more you see people in positions of leadership, the more it will become a thing that is acceptable and the norm, and will be judged fairly by both men and women. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karen Hendrickson, CEO for Rabito Clinic and founder for Visual Orator Inc. Thank you. It's been lovely to have this conversation with you, and we'd love to have you back soon.
Anytime. Anytime.
Thank you so much.
All
right. Nanika, do you want to just closing comments?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't, but let me just say, how many were they? 79 points.
0.7.
Okay. If I was coming from my personal experience, That's 79.7% of people who are missing out on something very good.
Wow. Okay, that's a nice way to put it. And then of course 20.3% would pick female bosses. So
Indeed.
interesting. But thank you guys for coming through, Esinam. I'm grateful as always. You always show up when we call you, and we really do appreciate you. Nanika, thank you so much as well for coming to share your thoughts with us. And thank you guys. I know you could be anywhere doing anything, but you choose to stay tuned to us, and we're always grateful to you. My name is Animwaa Anim-Addo. If you have not listened to my song, Boomplay, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Animwaa Anim-Addo, it's Yes Sorry. You should go and listen to it. Like, I mean, I don't understand if you haven't listened to it, but just like, by the way. Anyways, we'll be back next week. Thank you to our Bakes and Mirabel and Crispy K and the rest of the team. I feel like I want to say something, but there's really nothing more to say. Go and listen to the song. Follow me on social media, Animwaa Anim-Addo. Like, if you just type Animwaa, you'll find me.
Well,
all right.
I'm waiting for you to finish, and I'll give allegation.
No, there's no allegation, and that is the end of the show. Maxwell Agbada brings us the 8 o'clock
Okay.
news.